guys, it's Lisa, and today I want to do another tag with you guys. This time it's what I've called the museum book tag. As you might have already noticed, I really love collections, museums, curating stuff, and it's something I do a lot on my shelves, so I figured I'd make a themed tag around museums. And for each of these 12 prompts, I'm gonna try to find a book on my shelves here. So the first prompt is buying a museum card. A book that you keep coming back to. So you've seen it once and you've decided you want to see it many more times. You get that museum card. What book just like you maybe read every year, you read every couple of years, maybe you get something new out of it every single time. And for me, that is the Fairyland series by Catherine M. Valente. These are 5 books, they're middle grade, they're about a girl who travels to Fairyland, and throughout these 5 books she kind of grows up and finds out who she is. And this is just so beautifully written, and there's so many clever little sentences in here that I think you get even more out of as an adult than as a child. And this is one of the reasons I keep coming back to it, because I learn something more every single time, which is why this series in particular is just something I love with all my heart, and I want to keep reading it the rest of my life. Yeah. So the second prompt is you've walked into the museum, but you've decided to get the guided tour. So this is a book that has a special story behind it that you would never know if you had not asked someone. And for me, the book with the special story behind it is The Wider Earth. This is a play by David Morton. And as you can maybe guess, this is a play I've seen, and I've seen it many times. I've actually seen it 10 times, and I've seen it 10 times in London over the course of 3 weekends I spent there, a couple of months apart each time. So I went in October, December and February, and I went to see it as many times as I could every time I was there. And at some point it kind of became the reason I went to London, just to see this play one more time before it closed. And the play is actually about Darwin and his voyage on the Beagle. But the reason this book is special to me is because I got it signed by all the actors in the play. It was amazing. The last time I was there, people actually knew who I was by then, because I'd been so many times, and they actually asked to meet me, and it was absolutely amazing. So this is that one book for me that has just even more importance because of the story and because I've seen the play so many times. The next prompt is hidden in a corner. What is a book that is a favorite, that is extremely underrated, that you feel almost nobody is talking about, that's just hidden in the corner of the museum but that you maybe visit every time? And for me, that is the graphic novel This Was Our Pact. And I haven't really heard many people talking about it. It might be just because I'm not watching the right people, but this is just an amazing book that really reminds me of the Studio Ghibli movies. And it's, let me see if I can find a page here. Oh. So for example, you have this like little old lady. Maybe I'll insert in some more clips of other pages. But it's so beautiful. It has a really nice story, a good moral, and yeah, it's a real chunker of a graphic novel, and I think there's a lot to it. And I wish a lot of people, or a lot more people, especially people liking graphic novels and liking Studio Ghibli, could get to this book. The next prompt is missing link, that one book you need to complete a collection. I guess it would be most logical to use this as a series that you need to complete, because there's a couple of series I have on these shelves that are not completed. But I want to use this prompt to talk about The Iron Age by Arya Kayermo. This is a book that has been on my wish list for maybe close to 5 years and that I never got to. and it's a novella about a girl, I think from Finland, moving to Sweden. It's kind of based on her own life, and it's really about kind of folklore and the things she learned as a child. And the reason I need this book to complete a collection is because of some of the other books I have here. So these three, Ghost Wall, The Dead Lake, and Swallowing Mercury, they're all from different authors. And in my mind, the Iron Age fits perfectly into kind of this trend of books that I have here. Which is why I would really love to buy it to complete this collection of kind of folklore novellas that I have going on here. Okay, the next one is Masterpiece, the most beautiful book in your collection. And I think in a previous video I've already talked about Tolkien, maker of Middle-earth, which is just one of the most beautiful books. It's kind of like a naked hardcover with this illustration that Tolkien made on it. I'll insert a picture here. And it has all of Tolkien's artwork in really nice quality on the inside as well. But because I've already talked about that, I want to talk about a different book here, which is this beautiful thing. It's called Alpha Directions. It's by Jens Harder. So what he has done is he has taken existing images in popular culture, in science illustration, and he has used those images to write a history of the world. This book specifically talks about the beginning of the world until the age of men. It kind of ends all the way back here with the emergence of men here. And he has kind of made a collage of all these existing images and then redrawn them. And it's just like such a huge effort, but it's also incredibly interesting because, for example, for the beginning of the world, he doesn't only use scientific images, but he also uses images from mythology, from all kinds of different religions. And it's just kind of a beautiful illustration, not necessarily of what truly happened in the beginning of time and the prehistory of our world, but how we have viewed it, which is such an interesting concept. And it's just like, as you can see, it's really big. It's has all the different ages in it, and just every single page is just I think absolutely beautiful, which is why I really wanted to talk about it for the masterpiece option here. The next prompt is the museum cafe. We're about halfway through our visit, and we might need a little pick-me-up in the middle of our visit. So what book kind of is a pick-me-up, always makes you happy? If you need a little break, what book do you read? And for this prompt I have chosen Once Upon an Eid. It is edited by S.K. Ali and Aisha Said, but it's an anthology of 15 Muslim voices. And it's all about the Eid celebration. And there are short stories in here that kind of talk about morals. And there are short stories in here that are just, well, it says it right here, stories of hope and joy. So it's just really happy. It's written for a middle grade audience. It's really light, but you also kind of get something from every single story, which is nice. And one of the things I think which also really fits well with the museum cafe prompt is that there's a lot of descriptions of food, which make me hungry while reading it. And it's kind of sad because a lot of the foods described in here I've never even tasted before, so that's a good reason to kind of maybe go out and try some recipes. So that's what I wanted to talk about for that prompt. So the next prompt is the newest acquisition to the museum. And in this case, the newest acquisition to the collection. So the most recent book you have bought. And in my case, those are two books that I bought at the same time, and neither of them have arrived yet. So I'm still waiting on them. So I'll insert a picture here. The first one is Taktumi, which is an anthology of Nordic horror stories. Well, the reason I bought it is because you wouldn't really say it because it's still midsummer, but October is nearing and I really want to read some spooky stories, some horror. in October, so I got Taktumi, which I've read has a lot of kind of like folklore elements in it as well, which is really interesting to me, and I just kind of love that like wintry setting for horror. So Taktumi is one of my most recent acquisitions or books that I bought. Okay, so yeah, the other book is Dhaka Dust by Dilruba Ahmed, and this is a book of poetry, kind of mixing personal stories with kind of a travel dialogue about Dhaka, which is a city in Bangladesh. And she is from Bangladeshi descent, but she grew up in America where she lives now, and she talks about a couple of her visits to Dhaka in this poetry collection, but also her travels to Europe. And the reason I bought this one is for the Reading Asia project that I'm attending, I guess. So more information on that below. Alright, so after the most recent purchase comes the prompt number 8, Stuck in the Depot. A museum piece that maybe never really makes the light of day, but is important enough to keep anyway. So for this, I'm looking for a book that I've loved, you've loved. So the book for this is a book that you have loved but never really talk about. And in my case, I never really talk about books anyway, because this channel is only 2 videos old. But I've decided to go with The Voyage of the Narwhal by Andrea Barrett. And I've actually read multiple of her books. She has a couple of short story collections out as well. And what she does is she writes about the history of science, which, as you might know, is one of my favorite topics. So this book specifically is about a man traveling on a ship to the North Pole in order to find a missing expedition, the Franklin expedition, which was an actual expedition through history. And the wife of the man who led this Franklin expedition, she actually constantly tried to find new crews to look for her husband, and this is the fictionalization of one of those crews. And this book kind of ticks a lot of my interest boxes, but when I think of my favorite books, this doesn't really come up, and I don't necessarily know why, which is why I chose it for this prompt as well. Alright, the next one is an informative display. You've been walking through the museum and suddenly you see something that maybe sparks an interest, which is what this prompt is all about, is a book that has sparked your interest. And this could be a non-fiction book, but I've actually gone with a fiction book this time. And this is Invisible Planets. These are 13 science fiction stories from China, from Chinese authors, edited by Ken Liu. And this book kind of sparked my interest in science fiction short stories, but specifically Asian and Chinese short stories and science fiction. And what I really love about it is that they kind of blend historical fiction, speculative magic, folklore, and science fiction together. And they talk about like actual problems, both in the past and problems that might arise in the future. And I really loved this book, and based on that I actually got, where is it? His other edited collection of short stories from Chinese writers, and his own short story collection, which is kind of about the same things. And all of these kind of combine that historical science fiction kind of thing and explore really interesting topics. So this is kind of what sparked all of that, which is why I wanted to why I picked it for this prompt. Put that back right. The next one is Always on Loan. You might go to the museum to see a specific piece, but it's not there because it's in a different museum because everyone wants to see it. And this is a book that you would like everyone. Alright, so a book that you would want everyone to read, a book that you wish was always on loan. And for this, I have chosen a middle grade graphic novel called Pilu of the Woods, which is written and illustrated by Mai K. Nagayan. So the reason I've picked this one, the reason I want everyone to read this book, is because of the message that it kind of tells, and especially for young people. This book is all about what happens when you kind of bundle up your emotions inside of yourself. If you don't let yourself grieve, if you don't let yourself be angry, things only get worse. And that is kind of explored in this book through very cute illustrations in a very accessible way. And I think it really promotes a very healthy way of dealing with stressful or negative emotions, which is why I'd recommend it to basically everyone, because everyone gets those emotions sometimes. Okay, we're finally at the end of our tour, and for this next prompt, we're looking at the auction. So what is a book you do really want to buy, you really want to add to this collection of yours? And for me, right now at least, it's The Last Halloween by Abby Howard. This is again kind of looking forward to Halloween, to October, and I really love kind of the seasonal stuff. And this book looks like it's kind of has those like very typical Halloweeny things in it, like really that Halloween feel, like the pumpkin, but it also, I think it's genuinely very scary. It looks very scary from what I've seen online, and I really want to read this in October, so it's one of the books that I'm really looking forward to getting. Alright, we've come to the end of our museum visit, and at the end of the museum you will always find the gift shop. So the last prompt is Souvenir, a book that you have bought at a museum gift shop, or more generally, if you don't buy books at museum gift shops, a book you've bought on a trip. For me, it is a book I've bought at a museum gift shop, and it's this, which is maybe not that common, especially anywhere else in the world, since it's a Dutch book. En it's een korte beschrijvingen van enige vergeten en verborgene antiquiteiten bij Johan Picard. And this book is a facsimile of a very old book, let me see, from 1660. It's all about prehistoric monuments in the north of the Netherlands. So for example, you've got the dolmens or the hunebedden in the north here. And in 1660 they had no idea what they were. And they thought they were kind of built by giants, or that fairies were involved somehow. So this is Johan Picard's book on what he has found, what he has heard. So it's not scientific at all. It actually has some images. Let me see if I can find them. Yeah, here we go. It actually has some images of giants building these huge stone structures. Think Stonehenge, for example. And he mostly just looked at them, didn't do any excavations or anything. He just looked at them and kind of collected stories from like the villages and kind of like oral traditions. And so this book I bought at a museum of antiquity. I think I got it at the National Museum of Antiquity here in the Netherlands in Leiden, and I just couldn't leave it. And to be honest, have not completely finished this book yet. Should probably get on that sometime. So yeah, that was my museum book tag. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about the books that I read, and maybe you'd like to do the tag yourself. In that case, I tag you. Feel free to do this tag, or maybe even make some additions to it or changes to it to fit maybe your specific collection. I hope you liked it. I hope you liked seeing some of my books, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! I don't know if you can tell that I'm recovering from a cold.